Nestled in the Florida Panhandle at the junction of the Waukulla and St. Marcos River lies a relic of the past. The location itself exchanged hands numerous times and was lost to history until the 1960s. So let's bring the past into the present with San Marcos de Apalache. In 1528, Spanish forces under Panfilo de Neves landed in the area with roughly 300 men. The spot became an important location to protect trading routes, and a small outpost was established to affirm Spain's claim to Florida. A century later, in 1679, a larger force arrived to occupy more of the Apalachee territory. A wooden structure was built on the site that housed 45 soldiers and 400 Apalachee Indians and named Fort San Marcos de Apalache. In one of the numerous colonial wars, the fort was attacked by English, French, and Indian raiders in 1682. At the beginning of the 18th century, Spain and England were fighting again in the colonies, and fearing being cut off, the Spanish burnt the fort to the ground and consolidated their forces elsewhere. Spanish forces returned in 1718 under Captain José Primo de Rivera and built a sturdier fort of stone, making it more of a defensible post. In 1739, the Spanish planned to construct a larger stone fort on the site. It would still be under construction in 1763 when Florida, under the Treaty of Paris, was given to England as a result of the French and Indian War. It would change hands again in 1787 at the conclusion of the American Revolution. It would become a thriving center for Indian trade and, despite briefly being lost to William Billy Bowles in the 1790s, the spot was relatively peaceful. In 1818, General Andrew Jackson would march an army into Florida and capture the fort in the name of the United States. By this point, Spain's empire was clearly beyond decline, and Florida was ceded to the United States in 1819 with the Adams-Onis Treaty. The U.S. military would occupy the post sporadically until the 1850s, when the U.S. Navy would build a marine hospital there to treat sailors with yellow fever. It would only serve as a hospital for a couple of years until the outbreak of the American Civil War. Confederate soldiers moved quickly to occupy the fort and renamed it Fort Ward. They would also construct earthwork fortifications to defend it from Union attacks. In 1865, the garrison at Fort Ward would march out and fight the Union at the Battle of Natural Bridge. By March 1865, Union forces had entered Florida looking to capture the state capital and retaliate against Confederate attacks at Fort Myers and Cedar Key. Attempts at crossing the river failed when Confederate forces destroyed the bridge, leaving Natural Bridge as the next best crossing point. The Union was able to push the Confederates back, but not away from the bridge. After fighting all day, the Union forces gave up the attack and retreated. While not a massive victory for the South, it was the last one for the Confederacy and the second largest battle in the state of Florida. It also prevented the capture of the Florida capital, leaving Tallahassee as the only Confederate capital east of the Mississippi to never be in Union hands. With the Civil War over, the site of San Marcos de Apalache fell into private ownership and would remain so for a century. The spot would become overgrown and was only accessible by boat. In the 1960s, it became a National Historic Landmark, and the state of Florida purchased the land, turning it into San Marcos de Apalache Historic State Park. The land around the fort was filled in, and a road was built, Canal Street, along with a parking lot, museum, and public amenities. The Park Museum sits on the remains of the Marine Hospital. Of the forces that resided on the property, only the ruins of the 3rd Spanish fort and Confederate earthworks are visible. At the entrance, 6 flags are present representing every nation that held the fort, and are a reminder of Florida's important history. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe buttons, and feel free to leave a comment on what you'd like to see a video on next. As always, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at pastandpresent4. Thanks for watching.